13 months, 28 days each. Exactly 364 days. A calendar so mathematically precise that some of the largest institutions on Earth seriously considered replacing the modern calendar with it. That's not a thought experiment. That's not a fringe idea from a self-published pamphlet. That was a live proposal, on the table, in rooms where real decisions were being made. The year was 1923. The League of Nations, the closest thing the world had to a governing body, opened a formal inquiry into global calendar reform. Dozens of proposals were submitted. One kept rising to the top. 13 months. Each one is identical. Every month begins on a Sunday. Every month ends on a Saturday. The same date always falls on the same day of the week, every year, without exception. No irregular months. No leap year quirks shifting everything by 3 days. No 30 days hath September to memorize. The people reviewing this were not dreamers. They were administrators, economists, industrial planners. They looked at the math and they agreed. It works. And then quietly the proposal disappeared. No dramatic vote against it, no defining public rejection, no single moment where someone stood up and said no. Just gone. As if the question had been asked, and then misplaced. Here's what I can't resolve. If the math worked, what didn't? Here is the official explanation. The Gregorian calendar evolved from centuries of Roman and Christian reform, designed to align the civil year with the movement of the sun. Alternatives, like the fixed calendar, failed because replacing a global timekeeping system would have been too disruptive, politically, economically, religiously, to be worth it. That is a reasonable explanation. It is probably even partly true. Here is the first thing that doesn't fit. By 1924, the International Fixed Calendar had the backing of the League of Nations inquiry and the public support of some of the most powerful industrialists in the world. This was not a fringe petition. George Eastman, founder of Kodak, one of the most operationally minded men of his generation, was an active champion. The reform movement had infrastructure. It had momentum. It had institutional credibility. And then, with no single defining vote and no landmark rejection, the momentum stopped. No record of a decisive debate. No closing statement. The reform did not lose. It simply ceased to advance. Here is the second thing that doesn't fit. In 1928, Kodak adopted the International Fixed Calendar for all internal operations: payroll, scheduling, accounting. For 61 years until 1989, employees at one of the largest companies on Earth worked inside a completely different structure of time than the rest of the world, and it worked. Cleanly. Efficiently. Exactly as promised. The disruption argument says the system was too impractical to implement. Kodak ran it for 6 decades. Those two facts cannot both be true at the same time. Something else was in the room when this decision was made, and whatever it was, it didn't make it into the record. Here is the third thing that doesn't fit, and this one is older. Across cultures that never contacted each other, across centuries that never overlapped, the same structure kept appearing. 13 cycles, 28 days. A rhythm tied not to administrative convenience, but to the observable sky. The Babylonians tracked it, the Maya encoded it. Certain pre-Roman Celtic traditions were organized around it. These were not borrowed ideas. They were independent arrivals at the same number. That number is not arbitrary. It maps almost exactly onto the lunar cycle, approximately 29.5 days, close enough that 13 months covers a full solar year with a single day left over. Ancient timekeepers didn't invent this structure. They observed it. Then something changed. In 46 BCE, Julius Caesar imposed a reformed calendar across the Roman world. Local timekeeping systems, many of them tied to agricultural cycles and lunar observation, were gradually displaced. Not all at once, not by decree in every case. But the infrastructure of Roman administration ran on Roman time, and everything outside that infrastructure became increasingly difficult to maintain. In 1582, the Gregorian reform extended that logic further. Catholic nations adopted it first. Protestant nations resisted for decades. England held out until 1752. By the time the League of Nations convened its calendar inquiry in the 1920s, the Gregorian system had been embedded in global commerce, law, and communications for nearly 3 centuries. This isn't a story about one proposal failing. This is what happens when a standardized system encounters something it has no category for, not as an enemy, but as noise. The fixed calendar wasn't rejected. It was incompatible. And incompatibility, inside a system built for uniformity, produces the same outcome as rejection. It just leaves fewer fingerprints. Then there are the Coatsworth Papers. Moses Coatsworth was the man who formalized the international fixed calendar proposal. His correspondence and reform documents are held in archival collections, but researchers who have worked with them note gaps. Specifically, during the years between 1924 and 1928, when the League of Nations inquiry was most active, portions of the record are thin in ways that archival records of comparable reform movements are not. Those gaps may have an ordinary explanation. Files get lost, institutions change hands, paper degrades. But the gaps are where the momentum was. 3 questions the record hasn't answered. Why does the documentation think precisely when the reform movement was strongest? Which committee received the final League of Nations calendar inquiry report, and what action, if any, did they log? Where is the closure document? Every formal inquiry produces one. This one doesn't appear to have. Those questions have answers. They exist somewhere, just not here. George Eastman kept a desk calendar in his office at 900 East Avenue, Rochester, New York. By 1928, that calendar had 13 months. Every one of his employees had the same. He didn't implement it as an experiment. He implemented it because he had done the accounting, and the accounting was clear. Payroll became simpler. Quarterly reporting became cleaner. Scheduling across a global operation with over 20,000 employees became, for the first time, genuinely uniform. Every quarter was identical. Every period was comparable. The math that the League of Nations had been debating in the abstract, Eastman was running in practice, and it worked exactly as the proposal said it would. He also believed something harder to quantify. He believed the existing calendar was unfair. Unequal months meant unequal workloads. Unequal quarters meant unequal measurements. A salesman working February was being compared to a salesman working March, using numbers that had never been calibrated for the difference. The fixed calendar removed that. It gave everyone the same container. Eastman thought that mattered. He championed the reform publicly until his death in 1932. Kodak kept running on fixed calendar time for another 57 years after he was gone. In 1989, with no public announcement and no recorded explanation, Kodak realigned its internal calendar with the Gregorian system. Here is the mechanism. It is not complicated. The Gregorian calendar is not embedded in global commerce because it is the best system. It is embedded because it arrived first at sufficient scale, and scale, once it reaches a certain threshold, stops being a feature and becomes the environment. You don't adopt it because you chose it. You adopt it because everything you need to interact with already runs on it. The fixed calendar generated friction. Not opposition, not conspiracy. Friction. Every contract written in Gregorian terms required translation. Every international deadline required a conversion. Every partner, supplier, regulator, and bank operated in a framework the fixed calendar didn't share. The system wasn't hostile to the reform. It was simply indifferent, and at sufficient scale, indifference functions like gravity. You don't fight gravity, you work around it, or you eventually stop working against it. Kodak worked around it for 61 years. Then the cost of working around it exceeded the benefit of the system itself. No drama, no decision meeting we know of. Just a quiet realignment, in a year that history was otherwise occupied with, back into the common framework. The fixed calendar wasn't defeated. It was absorbed back into the noise. What I cannot answer is this. Did anyone at Kodak, in 1989, understand what they were ending and decide it didn't matter? Or did no one think to ask? What survived is the calendar itself, not as a running system, as a document. The full proposal, 13 months, 28 days each. One remaining day designated outside the count entirely exists in archival collections, in League of Nations reform records, in Kodak's internal administrative history, and in the holdings of calendar reform societies that never stopped believing it was the right answer. The structure is preserved completely. You can read it today. You can print it out, fill in a year, and use it. It functions exactly as described. That survival should feel like comfort. It doesn't. Because the document that survived cannot tell you what the world would have looked like if it had been adopted in 1928. It cannot tell you which other systems, agricultural, civic, cultural, were quietly standardized out of existence during the same period, by the same logic, and left no document at all. The fixed calendar survived because it was organized, formalized, championed by powerful institutions, and recorded in languages that archivists could file. Most things that were displaced in the same era were not that lucky. The fixed calendar is the one we can measure. It is not the only one that disappeared. 13 months. 28 days each. Exactly 364 days. When you heard that at the beginning, it probably sounded like curiosity. A clever alternative. A what if. It wasn't a what if. It was a running system inside one of the largest companies on Earth for 61 years. It was a formal proposal before a body of nations. It was close, genuinely close, and then the framework that surrounds all decisions absorbed it without leaving a clear record of why. The calendar was not destroyed. It was processed through a system that had no designation for what it was, no instrument for what it meant, and no budget for what it would have cost to adopt it. The documents remain, and if you look at them long enough, they tell you exactly how a better structure disappears. Not through fire, not through decision, through the completely ordinary act of no one, at the moment it mattered, deciding that it did. The framework that processed the fixed calendar didn't end in 1989. It didn't end anywhere. It didn't need to. A framework that operates through indifference doesn't require maintenance. It only requires that nothing challenges it at sufficient scale to force a reckoning. Right now, in 2024, there are approximately 40 different calendar systems still in active use around the world. The Hebrew calendar, the Islamic calendar, the Ethiopian calendar, the Persian calendar, among others. Each one encodes a different relationship between human beings and time. Each one carries within it a different set of assumptions about cycles, seasons, and what a year is actually for. Every one of them runs alongside the Gregorian system, not instead of it, alongside it. Because global commerce, global law, global communications, all of it runs on Gregorian time. You can keep your calendar. You just have to translate everything into the common framework before it counts. The structure hasn't changed, only the scale has. And scale is the mechanism. It was the mechanism in 46 BCE when the Roman administration displaced local timekeeping. It was the mechanism in 1582 when the Gregorian reform moved across the Catholic world. It was the mechanism in 1989 when Kodak quietly realigned. The system does not need to choose to suppress alternatives. It only needs to grow large enough that alternatives become invisible by comparison. That is not a historical observation. That is a description of how every large standardized system operates: calendars, languages, currencies, platforms, formats. The ones that survive are rarely the ones that work best. They are the ones that reach scale first and made translation costly enough that alternatives stopped feeling worth it. The fixed calendar is still there, exactly as designed: 13 months, 28 days, 1 day outside the count. Nobody buried it, nobody banned it, nobody decided it was wrong. So here is the question I keep coming back to, the one I can't answer, and maybe you can't either. If the math was right all along, what else did we standardize in the past?